Gia and Tonya are my morning coffee.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to another edition of My Morning Coffee, where the conversation is always hot, bold, organic, and full of flavor. And today we actually got a little flavor to share with y'all. My Morning Coffee has gone international, and we have our own rum now. Miss Gia, why don't you go ahead and tell them about it? You're on mute.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. It's been a minute since we've been on here, so I'm glad to be back. And like Tonya said, we've gone international. Yes, we have our own My Morning Coffee rum. Check it out. Yes. So this happened actually kind of, I guess, organically. I happened to get away for just a brief minute, a few days, and I went to St. Martin. And went to a wine distillery and did a rum distillery, and did a rum tasting, and they had all kind of deliciousness there. So now I think my new drink is I just drink rum straight. That's how good it was. Okay. So so we learned about the distillery and the wine and the rum maker, and you know how it came about over there and stuff. And they also have a restaurant. So we happened to go to the restaurant after our tasting, and we met the owner of the rum distillery, Topper himself, because it's Topper's rum distillery. So we met him. So of course, you know me, Tonya. I'm always, well, no, you don't. Well, I don't always talk to people, but sometimes I feel myself, and I'm sociable, right? So so he happened to come to our table and was talking and everything, and we were talking and just about the business, him and the island and stuff like that. And you know me, I always get a hair up my behind, and I said, oh. So since he's all friendly with me and everything, I might as well throw it out there, right? So he asked us if we got a chance to meet the rum maker while we were there. We were like, no. And he's like, oh, well, here she is. She's coming up right now, which happens to be his wife, right? So we were talking and stuff. And I said, hey, I really like the rum. And, I was wondering if I have a podcast back in the States, if I could get, a special blend rum for my podcast. He was like, sure, no problem. Yeah. As soon as she comes up, just ask her, she'll do it, and stuff. And I was like, for real? So he was like, yeah. So I met her and the daughter and stuff. And then I happened to ask her, I said, hey, I hear that, you might be willing to do a little blend, special blend for my podcast. And I told her about it and everything. She was like, sure, no problem, I will, and she said, well, when are you leaving? So I told her when we were leaving, and she said, okay, I'll have it ready for you by this date. And lo and behold, voila, I went back there and it was there waiting for me. So I'm so excited. Oh, and it's delicious. Deliciousness is delicious. Yeah, but it's only
I didn't even know you drink like that.
It's only made, and it's a lot of things about me, Tonya. You don't know. I can't let everybody know all this stuff about me, girl. But yeah, I do every now and then. I'm not a heavy drinker. But doing the rum tasting, the rum is actually a lot of it was flavored rum, so it was delicious. So I'm now, doing, rum on ice, that kind of thing. Is that rum on the rocks? Yeah. So that's what I'm drinking now.
So I don't think they know. Last year, maybe it was it before COVID? We had a beer. We had a brew that was made. Right. We had a morning coffee blend for some early libations at an event that we did. So, stick with your girls. You never know what kind of flavor you might wind up with in your cup.
Rum today, it could be vodka tomorrow, or something else. Might even be a wine coming soon. But us, we always coming with some kind of My Morning Coffee something. So be on the lookout for more My Morning Coffee merchandise and maybe some libations, as Tonya says. But yes.
Listen, make sure you join the Cup Crew. Subscribe to the podcast. We are never judgmental about what's in your cup, okay? So make sure you stick with us, and you never know what might wind up in your cup. No judgment, pure fun, all the good stuff. And today we have some more good stuff for you. We are bringing you some dads, some pretty dope dads that are doing some cool things. We want to make sure that as we approach Father's Day, we want to recognize the men in our lives. It's almost disheartening how we hear about how Black fathers are not in their children's lives, are not around. And we want to go ahead and dispel that myth today. We're going to bring on some amazing dope dads, talk about what they've been doing, their professional life, and show you how they balance, because it is a balance. We are not the only ones that have to balance. They have to learn how to balance, be there for their kids, and then talk about maybe how they're different than their own upbringing. So without further ado, we're going to find out what's in their cups, share with you what's been in ours. Well, you see what's been in Gia's cup, but I'm going to bring to you our gentlemen right now. And I'm looking forward to this. It's just kind of warm and fuzzy, Good morning, fellas. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Good.
How are
Good.
you?
All right. All right. Doing great.
So I'm going to go around and allow each of you to introduce yourself, let the people know exactly what you do, talk about your business, and then tell us how many kids you got and how old they are. Let's start there. Evans.
So, Evan St. Ford here. The business that I'm in is I'm in the funeral industry. Not a happy place to be in, but it's a family-owned company. My father started it overseas in Haiti, is where he started. We own 3 funeral homes there, and I decided to follow in his footsteps, and we opened up 2 other funeral homes here in Florida. So I pretty much run and operate the ones here in Florida. As far as children, I have 2 children. My wife is trying to push me to have more, but so far 2 right now.
How old are they?
My daughter is 12, going on 21, and my son is 5.
What has Father's Day typically looked like for you?
For me, Father's Day, you hear the term, it takes a village to raise a child. And, fortunately for me, I have that village. My parents are still in my life. My wife is highly involved with helping me co-parent. And I'm going to even go as far as to say I'm thankful for our nanny, because she helps out tremendously too, because my wife is also a professional. So it definitely takes a village. And I'm very fortunate to have a huge team that surrounds me, that helps me and my wife with our children. So you mentioned balance earlier. It is crucial. It's key because, I do put in a lot of time into the office, not to say that I have to at this point anymore, but it has taken a lot of my time. And learning the balance in the beginning was really tough. And honestly, my wife kind of helped me prepare for that, because she was the one that kind of taught me how to better create a work-life balance. So I make sure, not only do I dedicate, of course, time into what I do for a living, but I make sure to also pour into my children's lives, because as you said earlier, we are our children's role models, not the athletes, not the actors. It's us as fathers, it's us as parents that are the role models to our children. So
I love that. Now, Chef Brown, let us know a little bit about you. Clearly, we know what you do, but we want to hear a little bit more about your fatherhood and how many you have, their age, and how you balance and what Father's Day looks like for you.
Well, my name is Chef Carlos Brown. I own the Shrimp and Grits Cafe, actually the franchise, Shrimp and Grits Cafe franchise. I have 5 children. Yes, their ages 17, 15, 12, 9, no, I'm sorry, 10, and 8. think I got them all in. But anyway, yes. So I have 5 wonderful children. And fatherhood has been very interesting. We have a very talented group of children, which they all run track or do music and all those good things. It's the balance of work and being an entrepreneur and being a father is really important. My restaurant's in Charleston, South Carolina, opening 2 in Atlanta, so I travel a lot. And so the balance comes in where we have to make ourselves sit down and say, okay, you own these business, you're a businessman, but you're a father first. And so I make myself available to my children. I also do something that is very important, vitally important, especially in the African American community, is, we do family counseling. We do life coach. We make sure that we keep a balance, and we ask our kids, hey, what is it that we're doing that we can do better? So we have those dialect, those conversations. I think that's what I'm about is saving hospitality. I believe hospitality begins in the home, and so I try to model myself as a hospitality major type guy that says, okay, I'm going to start in my household and make sure that I develop this gift in my house first, so we cannot be another family that are going through divorce and things like that. So I think it's very vitally important. So fatherhood to me is wonderful. Is wonderful.
Such a blessing. It sounds like home training, which a lot of people seem to be missing these days, is something that they get from your household. Yes.
Absolutely. And it's so important that we give that.
So I hope that coaching that you do, if you have any recommendations for some of the people that seem to have lost their way in regards to having home training, hospitality, things that their parents taught them, we might need to share that information, because seems these days folks is missing a little home training, hospitality, manners, things like that. Listen, I'm just glad that you're doing it. What a blessing.
Thank you.
Chef,
Go ahead.
Before you go to the next gift, Chef, can you say the name of your restaurants again? Because you said you have 2 in Atlanta, and the reason why I'm asking you to do that, because I have family and I got a lot of friends in Atlanta, and I want them to support your business. So can you give your business a shout out again? What's the name of the restaurant?
It's Shrimp and Grits Cafe. It's a brand new franchise. Actually, you guys are the first time I've ever announced it. The franchise is taking off, and we have been in Charleston, and we're opening 4 in Atlanta. 4 in Atlanta, 2 in Phoenix, Arizona, 2 in Dallas, Texas, and the list goes on. And so, Shrimp and Grits Cafe, brand new. I'm inside the Smithsonian Museum for Shrimp and Grits. And just a little background on the Shrimp and Grits. I took the history where it came from. I'm from the Gullah culture, and explore our culture, because you go around the world and you see shrimp and grits on everybody's menu, and everybody's trying to do it right. And man, it's an amazing gift that for.
I think we lost audio, Chef.
I can hear you very well. Do you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm displaying this art across the world, and also
cut out again. Okay. Mr. Sneed, let's get going with you. And I want you to let us know all about the Sneed family.
That could be a long story. Where do you want to start? Let's start with I'm sporting the company brand.
Hey. Love it.
Oh, let's see. Where do you want to start? Oh, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna proceed with the questions you asked the other guest. Fatherhood. I'm a father of 2. My daughter is 34. My son is 31. My only grandchild is 4 months, and so he's definitely been a bright spot in the year 2021. Getting to see a new life, a new male heir in my family. Most of the men have died relatively young, so I am the senior patriarch in my direct line of men, which is kind of sobering, in some ways. And let's see, I got a lot of things going on here lately. I'm a food industry professional, been in that business since the late 80s. Started a new catering business with a partner, and we're growing that and getting that up and going. I'm a trained voice actor, so I'm working on that world too. And my son, of all people, now has me acting and modeling and going into his profession. So life comes full circle in some ways. And that's the short list.
What has fatherhood typically looked like for you? What has Father's Day, I'm sorry, typically looked like for you?
It's always been kind of low key. Never huge parties and events, gifts, but never huge spectacular. And I think that's mostly because I never wanted anything like that. I always, it's nice to be acknowledged. It's nice to be recognized. But I've actually spent more time recognizing others. My fraternity chapter has had a Father's Day event for years. It kind of got derailed with COVID and some other issues, but recognizing other community fathers, guys who just go about the grind of fatherhood, casting away the negative connotations and myths around Black men and fatherhood was far more important than my own recognition. Because I know tons of fathers that put in work and do what fathers do, but the media narrative is always, Black women run the house, Black women raise the kids, Black women do all this stuff. And it's not to say that doesn't happen, but to just divorce the men from the picture is a fallacy. And it's done to our detriment.
So let's open it up, because that's exactly what I want to talk about, which is, that's the myth of it, right? It may be true in certain situations, but not in all. So how has fatherhood looked to you? So did you have your father in your life? And how does it look different now than when you were growing up?
Who do you want to start with?
You either one. You can go right now.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm very fortunate. I still have my father involved in my life today. And when people ask me, who I guess was your role model, who's your mentor, I usually divert. It's funny because I don't really tell him that like that, but I would say that my father's been more of my role model, my mentor. As you can see, I'm doing similar things to him. Growing up, as far as my father's role in my life, unfortunately, I'm very honest. My father was a serial entrepreneur. We owned the cargo ships, and we had an import-export business before we got into the funeral industry. So my father had to travel a lot. So my mother was more involved in my life, but my father, when he was there, he still made an impact. And I was an athlete in high school growing up. And so whenever he was in town, he would always make sure to be at every single game that he could attend. And, although he wasn't there for me 24/7, I feel personally that he was there for me because he was my emotional support if I needed someone. Of course, he was financial support, and he was the man in my life when I was growing up. So that was enough for me growing up as a young man in terms of my father's role in my life. So I was very fortunate in that sense. And even today, our relationship is very strong, even in business, because we work together too.
Jeff? Chef?
Okay, I'll go next. No, my father wasn't in my life. He actually died in his middle 50s in a prison in Huntsville, Texas. And it took me a lot of years to even articulate that and say that out loud. And now I'm saying it about as publicly as I've ever said it on this broadcast. But my grandparents, his parents, did what they could to fill in the gap. And my father got connected with drugs and drug crimes in his middle to late 20s, from what I could gather, and spiraled downward from there. But my grandparents did what they could to fill the gaps. They made sure I stayed connected to them and family members. I spent summers in junior high school, and I think my first year in high school with them in Dallas and area every year. So I've always felt connected. I never lost connection to that side of my family. It's just I didn't have my father around, and then when circumstances were such that he was out and about, we struggled with our relationship in some areas, because at that point I was a grown man, and it was a little difficult for him to reconcile that. It's like, you want to be a father. It's like, we got to relate on a different level. So that kind of shaped how I attempted to be there in the lives of my kids. I don't think I ever missed any kind of event they had, any sporting event, at most practices, as well as games and everything else, and did all the PTA and all of that type of stuff. And it was really just I wanted to make sure they were okay, and because they both had stints in some pretty high level private schools, as well as mixed race schools. So I'm always concerned about how my Black kids are being treated in predominantly white environments. And so I just tried to be there as I can. As they've come into adulthood, it was like, okay, you grow up, do your own thing. And most recently, we've all kind of reconnected again in a very cool and organic way of just being good friends, which is great. And at their age, they don't necessarily need a father figure. They want a father. So
I love that. Definitely appreciate it. Chef, talk to me about what fatherhood looked like to you.
Well, I didn't raise up with my father as well. I knew my father, but Mama pretty much raised us. But they're still great pointers. My mother would teach us to respect our father, even though that he wasn't there. So I raised up with the respect for him, in spite of him not being in the house. And so there were times I could tell you there's some good things to learn from my father. My father was a businessman, which I'm a businessman as well, and so some of those things he kind of talked to me about. And my father's deceased, as well as my mother, but he would talk to us about the business aspect and not being afraid to try and step out and don't give up. He also would talk to us about the mistakes that he's made, things that he didn't do, and how he was really sorry for not being there. And I had a forgiving heart. I learned what not to do with my children, which makes it that much better for them, because I want them to see something different than what I came up with.
Uh-oh, You cut out. There you go. It cut out again. So here's my question to all of you that are active in your children's lives, and you have been since they were young. Most of us have had people in our lives that were not necessarily our parents, always that were an influence on our life. How do you, or what situations have you been in where you recognize that you're not just an influence on your child, also on their friends, and maybe younger relatives, other small relatives that come with them, come home with them, meet out at the track meet, or in different sporting events. How have you also played a role in being an influence on other young people in your kids' lives? Either one of you, go ahead and take it.
I'll take that. So when my son was playing AAU basketball, and I was one of the assistant coaches and whatnot, I got really close with a lot of his teammates, and I talked to him about pretty much everything. I was the cool pops, and at the time, my son, whose name is Jason, he went by the nickname Jay Smooth, and so then his buddies start calling me Papa Smooth, and so it's like, oh yeah, Papa Smooth said this and those kinds of things. It was kind of funny, and one day, well past high school, I think Jason had finished college, and he said to me, I always felt a little jealous of how you talk to my friends because you didn't talk to me the same way. And, I had to pause and process what he was saying. And, my response was, and it was, well, you were my son and they weren't. So I talked to them about life and things differently than I talked to you, but it wasn't intentional. It wasn't, you were there in the room. He's like, yeah, but you weren't talking to me. You were talking to them. And it's just one of those things that shows how you can communicate in a room, you can be in places and spaces and think you're talking to everybody the same, but everybody hears things a little bit differently. And that was pretty eye-opening. Another for me, a real quick story was when I was in 6th grade, a basketball coach, playing in a YMCA league, Elgin Baylor League, first place I ever got to meet Elgin Baylor. And coach would come and pick me up and take me because we didn't have a car, we didn't have transportation and all of this stuff. And I think I wound up playing for him for 3 years. One of the first meetings I go to the Sigma House after I had crossed into the fraternity, I go to the graduate chapter meeting. I look and I'm like, Coach Holt, what are you doing here? He's like, Jeff. And that was it was so heartwarming for me to see that a man that I had admired all these years, I wind up joining his fraternity. And that was so cool. And, we chopped it up to the extent that we could. I'm, college now, and I last saw him when I was like 7th grade, but it was still the whole fact of the matter was just, one of those moments I'll always cherish.
So you had an effect on your son's friends and you were affected by someone else. So the influence just keeps getting passed down. I love that. Mr. St. Fort, speak to me.
So, my children are pretty young, so I'm still going through the motions in terms of, what effect I'm having on my children. The only thing I can say in terms of that is I just make sure that what I do around them is what I would want, I guess, other parents to do around my children. So I grew up in church, and I still pretty much do the same with my children. It's the way I was brought up, in terms of just making sure I have a spiritual background, so I want the same for them. So I also have my children involved in different athletic sports, basketball, my daughter tennis and volleyball. So again, I can't say what effect I'm having on her friends around, but I just make sure I do what it is I want other parents to do around my children.
Definitely. Chef?
Definitely. Chef?
Yes. So
Yes.
I try
So
to
I try
have
to.
the effect I try to have on my kids and their friends is to be an example of what it looks like. So I treat my daughters like young ladies, and I treat my sons like gentlemen. And it may sound almost like old school, but it works for me. Because I want them to be able to go in an environment and one be respect and give respect. So we teach the golden rule in our house: to do unto others as God to do unto you, and I try to maintain that example. So whatever they involve in, also make sure that I take place in that as well. So they know that Daddy's not just concerned about his business or what he's doing, but he's also concerned about our dreams and our passion. And I tend to walk through them step by step. The other thing is learning how to effectively communicate with your kids. I want to make sure that I can effectively communicate to them, and also give them the opportunity to communicate with me. Because there's things that kids hold in, and they talk to their parents. I don't. I allow my kids not to be afraid to talk to me, because if they can't get the information, they go out and ask others information. So to make sure I leave those doors open. So that's a great impact I have. I think it is working.
I have a question for all you guys on the panel. Recently read something, it probably on social media, and it was a post from a woman posted it, and it had something to do with girls' relationships with their mothers, and how mothers always seem to be harder on when there's a daughter and a son, siblings and stuff. Mothers were always, in her mind, her mother was always harder on her, being a woman, and she wasn't as hard on her brother. That's how she felt. So my question to you guys, because it seems like you guys, all three of you guys have both, male and female kids. Do you find yourself being harder on your son or sons as opposed to your daughters, or vice versa?
I know for sure. For me, I'm probably hard on the boys. My girls seem to think they can get away with everything. My wife is more hard on my daughters. I'm like, hey, ease up on the girls. But I tend to be a little hard on the boys, and that's because, again, not having a father, I had to learn from streets and from trial and error. So I try to not let them go through what I went through.
Okay, so it kind of sounds like
and Ray's harder on the boys. Princess. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It seems like that mothers tend to be more hard on their girls than their sons, and then men, you guys are a little softer on the girls and harder on the guys. So it's funny how that I guess that happens in parenting.
I'm actually, I would say, soft with both of my children, unfortunately. I'm not proud to say that, but I'd say my wife is definitely more of the disciplinarian. I'm more of a hot or cold person. So if you push me to the edge, you don't want to see that side of me. So my wife always complains, and she's like, why am I so soft, or why am I so nice to them? So typically if they're misbehaving, they tend to come to me, because I'm gonna just try to like calm the situation down, because my wife is definitely the discipliner. Not that I'm proud to say it, but I'm more of the nice guy in my household to both of my children.
Well, we came for truth, and you gave it to us.
I think my kids would say I was the hard ass more so than anything else. And I tried to keep, I wanted them to be disciplined in the sense of being controlled and know what, how to react and act in certain situations. I remember we were at Disneyland, and at the time I had access to Club 33, and we had a dinner reservation. So I'm sitting there in the dining room with my kids, and they're eating and I'm eating and everything's fine. And the woman comes over to the table and says, "Your kids are so well-mannered." And I looked at her, and it's like, did you expect something different? I didn't say that. That was my thought, though. That did you expect something differently? My kids have learned how to eat in public for a very long time, and they're not throwing food and diving under their tables and all the things that were associated with, Black kids acting like white kids was completely unacceptable for us, because the connotation carried so much more weight. And so it was things like that. It was always, I was always like, carry yourself the right way, be the right way. So yeah, so I think I was, equally as tough. I don't think there was any favoritism for one or the other.
Okay.
And Chef, with your 5, I'm sure you were harder on somebody than not, right?
Oh yes, yeah. I would be a little tougher. Now I don't know. I take my kids to dinner now. They don't like something, they're gonna let the server know or the chef, because their dad is the chef. So but I tend to be like, this is a little tougher. The boys, I just want them to just be strong enough to, for their sisters. I came from a very large family. There's 7 of us, and we protected our sisters, and we made sure that they were respected at all time at any cost. And because we came out a rough neighborhood, and so I don't tell my kids to be rough or anything like that. But what I do, make sure that I kind of show them the way. While my father was around, when he did come around, he still made us do chores. We still had to figure out how to get under the hood, and he would to change tires and change oils and then cut the grass. My kids these days, they just want me to just hire somebody to come in and cut the grass. And then I go, "No, boys, you gotta get out there and do it. I'm gonna show you how to do it," and that type deal. But I've been a little tough on them. My daughters gets away a little bit. They get away with murder. Not with their mom, just with me.
I have another question. Not really a question. I know early on, all you guys really talked about when Tonya asked about what fatherhood means to you guys for that day, and all you guys seem to kind of downplay Father's Day. Like you didn't, it doesn't. You guys don't look at it. You don't put much on Father's Day. And I guess my question is to you guys is, why is that? And society is the same way. Why is that? Why do everybody celebrates Mother's Day so much better than Father's Day? And I believe that both parents are equally important, especially when they're around, and even when they're not around. Because when a father's not around, my father wasn't around. I wasn't raised in a 2-parent home. He was in and out of my life, and now he's passed away. So I didn't have that father figure, and and I used to always think to myself, they would say, girls, dad, sons need their fathers and things like that. But I also feel as though daughters need their fathers just as much as a boy needs his father, because I had to learn a lot of things through trial and error. I didn't have a male role model, positive role model there, immediately in my home to show me how I should and shouldn't be treated when it comes to the opposite sex and things like that. But I do you guys wish that they would play up Father's Day a lot more like they do Mother's Day? Are you guys okay with how it is, and why is that? Why do you guys just say, oh, it's no big deal?
I would say, for me, it's my responsibility, right? To be a father, it's my responsibility to take care of my kids. It's my responsibility to make sure I bring food to the table. So for me, if I'm acknowledged for something that I'm supposed to do, that's great, but there's no expectation for me to be acknowledged. I think for me, the best or proudest moment will be when my children finally get old enough for me to see that the time that I invested in them was well worth it. So it's in anything I do. If I get an award or an accolade, it's great, but this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to take care of my clients. I'm supposed to be the greatest that I can be. I'm supposed to be a great father. So I don't really, for me, those things don't matter. So when Father's Day does come along, do I expect gifts? Not necessarily. Do I need to be acknowledged? Not necessarily, because this is just what I'm supposed to do. So for me, I'm okay with it.
Likewise, I'm okay. I'm okay with not getting gifts. Actually, I tell my kids, hey, let's save that money. Let's save that money so we can put it aside for your college. Because I feel like it is my obligation to be a father, and it's an honor to be a father. And so I'm not into, it don't have to be it's not a big deal for me. My kids told me yesterday, what do you want for Father's Day? I said nothing. I said, well, I guess we're gonna have spaghetti. And so, because they know I love spaghetti. And so I was like, okay, that's fine. Make spaghetti. That's what I'll have. But I'm not really into, you don't have to, buy me anything, or I don't really trip over it for real. It's okay.
And I guess when I threw it out there, I wasn't talking about the gift giving, because I don't really believe in all of these gift giving holidays. What I'm saying, it just seems as though Mother's Day is so much more of a big deal than Father's Day. And I feel though fathers, you guys get cheated a lot, because if you think about a lot of things, the restaurants are packed on Mother's Day. They're not as packed as they are on Father's Day. It's just things like that. What I'm talking about is like, I think both people are equally important, and I know mothers probably doing a lot more because we're nurturers, and I get all that and stuff. But I just think you men, you get the short end of the stick, you get downplayed. And it's not about the gifts; it's just about, I think that Father's Day should be bigger than what we see in every day. That's all I was saying.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and because what happens is that particularly for Black men, there's so few opportunities to be applauded for anything. You if you're good at something, you're the exception to the rule. If you're bad at something, you just like all the rest of them. If you're, and being a father is more than being a parent. Being a father means you're in some sort of household environment, whether it's your biological kids or bonus kids or whatever the situation, your nieces or nephews. And the society should acknowledge men more for what they do, because you don't get it anywhere else. And if you can't get that attaboy at home, where are you going to get it? And we wind up a lot of times being, kind of sullen and reserved into who we are and what we do, and thinking everything is run of the mill, when you can be exceptional at what you do and no one ever says as much. And then you hear it so infrequently that if someone, outside of your circle, outside of your family acknowledges you, you feel almost embarrassed by being being acknowledged for having done something that the rest of the world or the rest of your colleagues or whomever may see as extraordinary. So yeah, Mother's Day is the #1 restaurant day in the country, followed by Valentine's Day. Yeah, there's a reason that guys, kind of have the mental health issues that they have and have the communication issues we have, because we're very rarely acknowledged as being good people.
Gia, I wanted to weigh in on that because I think you hit the nail on the head. It just doesn't get as much applause and accolades, when the truth of the matter is, I think the men in our lives really are the ones that are shaping who we become as women, as men, as entrepreneurs, business people, or criminals. I mean, they have an incredibly powerful effect on who we become. Some of them are our first heroes, right? They are for me, my grandfather was my conscience. Still not here, but it does not get the amount of weight. I won't even say accolades. I would just say fatherhood in general does not get the weight that it deserves. And maybe that plays into why some feel like it's so easy to walk away, because it's not important. So the way that society kind of pulls that back from fatherhood can be an issue in regards to how people see the importance of it. But for those of us that are brave enough to speak up and say, hey, this man shaped who I've become. It doesn't even always have to be someone in your house. There's been pastors and your uncles and grandparents. These men are important. And for us to deal with it in such a fleeting way, in such a lightweight type of sentiment, is disingenuous, because at the end of the day, most women that act out are having daddy issues because he wasn't around. So I think there's an opportunity for us to lean into what fatherhood really means, not allowing for the media to continue to sculpt this narrative that they're not in our lives, and actually uplifting the ones that are. Because even if your daddy ain't there, listen, this might be controversial, and I'm going to say what I'm saying. I don't believe when people say I have nobody in my life or I had nobody in my life, that's why I became this way, that's true. Because even when your daddy wasn't there, somebody else in that community was there. Somebody's daddy was there. And I have yet to find someone that nobody was around, whether it be a teacher, an uncle, a grandfather, a godfather, a cousin, an older somebody giving you some advice. You might not have wanted to take that advice, but somebody was there. You might not have wanted to listen to his directions or his instructions, but somebody was there. There are men in this room, there are men that are not in this room that have been there for other people's children. So I don't subscribe to that nobody was around type of conversation, because there are men, fathers, men that don't even have kids that have been there. I've seen them with my own eyes that were there to support the young people in the community. So I do think that we deal with it in such a lightweight manner that those that are looking for an exit, the way society plays it, it's for them. That works for them. And we need to stop that. So let me, before we get out of here, really quick, just ask you fellas, what does your ideal Father's Day look like? It's coming up. I don't know if your people is going to see this or not, but somebody might have a great idea of what a Father's Day looks like for you. A great Father's Day. Let's start with you, Chef. Besides spaghetti, I got the spaghetti. What kind of spaghetti?
I love spaghetti. I love spaghetti. I think my wife makes the best spaghetti. Actually, one of my favorite meals. So I mean, it looks like that day for me is always full of surprises, even when you don't want to be surprised. I already know there's going to be a surprise, so I set myself in a place to do whatever they want to do, and so even though I'll say stuff like, I'm good, I just want to relax today, this is watch some sports or whatever, they gonna change that anyway. So it'd be full of surprises. It'd be something out of the ordinary, but I'm going to enjoy it because I just enjoy the fact to just be around and to be acknowledged. And I definitely want to say to you all, you're 100% right for what you said. We ought to not be ashamed to push ourselves or give ourselves credit for being father. So I definitely wanted to say that too. But at the same time, I'm just going to just relax and enjoy whatever the ride is that day, even with spaghetti.
I love it. Thank you. Mr. Sneed.
This one is going to be a little more special because it's my first Father's Day as a grandfather, and it's my son's first Father's Day. So we're planning to make it a little more special and have the family bond and get everybody together, and whatever happens with that is cool, and enjoy each other's company and whatnot. But I think it's part of the aging process. You pay more attention to legacy. You pay more attention to your place in history. My son and I have talked a lot more about genealogy, and I've tried to find as many pictures of the men in the family going back probably 3-4 greats in terms of the grandparents and things like this, and it's important because I not to make it a downer, but I've learned so much more about relatives and family and friends at funerals than anybody ever talked about in any other setting. And I think we should do more to reminisce, acknowledge, and celebrate those who are alive, and tell the stories, and start getting more of the oral tradition of passing down things to one another. So you can't do that if you don't gather. So I'm looking forward to the gathering.
I love that.
And for myself, Mr. Sneed just mentioned something. I'm in the funeral industry, and of course I see death on a daily basis. And one of the saddest things is to see someone approach someone in a casket, and then there's saying to themselves that they wish they did this, they wish they did that, they wish they did this, or they forgot to tell that individual that they love them. So it's very important to anyone out there that's watching to take advantage, if you do have a father in your life, to let them know that you do appreciate them, because time is of the essence, and you just don't know when that last day will come. So one of the things I make sure I do is I make sure to tell my children every single day before I leave the house that I love them. And for me, what the ideal Father's Day looks like is, one, honestly, is to just be around them and just enjoy having intimate conversations with them, whether that's over breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or whether we're traveling, or whether we're just in the room, or whether we're playing video games, or whether we're just bonding. I do the best that I can every single day, not just on a holiday or a Father's Day, to take the time out to let my kids know that I love them. And I let them know the importance of that too, because again, you just never know when that last day will come. So if you do have a father out there that you do care for, make sure to let them know that you love them.
Man, you guys have Gia, anything before we go?
No, I just want to thank all of you guys for being on the show today. This was a great show. When Tonya pitched this show to me, I was like, yes, let's do it. And I'm glad we did do it. I'm glad I got to meet some other fathers and stuff. You guys are great men, and it seems like you're doing great things in your family's lives and in the lives around you and stuff. Keep up the good work. And a happy early Father's Day.
And I hope you get your spaghetti, Chef. I actually hope to be able to taste your wife's spaghetti one day. So please, let's keep in touch. Shameless plug. I do also want to make sure that I let you know that California will be waiting for your shrimp and grits cafe out here, because you called off a bunch of states and cities and none of them were California. So we beefing right now.
We might want to get that franchise. So keep us updated on that, because hey, we can pull our dollars together and become franchisees. So let's do it.
I love that. But listen, once My Morning Coffee family, always My Morning Coffee family, you guys are always welcome back anytime. And for our viewers, enjoy the men in your life, celebrate the fathers that helped you become who you are, and have an amazing rest of your week.